On the evening of February 7, 2025, Donald Trump announced via Truth Social that he would be terminating members of the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees and installing himself as chairman. The ostensible justification was that the previous leadership did not share his vision for a golden age in arts and culture. The actual provocation, he helpfully clarified, was that the Kennedy Center featured drag shows specifically targeting our youth. Within days, his hand-picked sycophants had elected him chairman by unanimous vote, fired the longtime president Deborah Rutter, and installed Richard Grenell, a man whose qualifications for running the nation's premier performing arts institution appear to consist entirely of having served as Trump's ambassador to Germany and possessing an apparently inexhaustible capacity for public sycophancy. What has followed represents something genuinely novel in American cultural vandalism, not merely the politicization of an arts institution, but its systematic destruction in the name of saving it. The numbers tell a story that no amount of Grenell's bluster can obscure. Between early September and mid-October, 43% of seats in the Kennedy Center's main theaters went unsold. The previous year, during that same period, unsold seats amounted to 7%. Credit card transaction data reveals that spending on Kennedy Center tickets fell by more than half compared to the prior year, a collapse not seen since the pandemic shuttered the building entirely. The Christmas production of The Nutcracker sold roughly 10,000 tickets across 7 performances, a 33% decline from the 15,000 that had been typical for the previous 2 decades. The Kennedy Center Honors broadcast drew 2.65 million viewers, down 35% from the previous year's already dismal 4.1 million. Even reliable warhorses like Les Miserables and The Sound of Music are hemorrhaging audiences. Grenell's response to this catastrophe has been characteristically Trumpian: deny reality while attacking those who point it out. The artists canceling their performances are suffering from derangement syndrome. The previous leadership was far left and booked political activists rather than artists. The programming is now common sense and aimed at the masses. When jazz musician Chuck Redd canceled his Christmas Eve concert, an event he had presided over for nearly 2 decades, after Trump's name was affixed to the building, Grenell sent him a letter threatening a lawsuit for $1 million in damages. The man who has overseen the emptying of one of America's great cultural institutions accused the departing artist of being very costly to a non-profit arts institution. The cascade of cancellations tells its own story. Hamilton's producers withdrew their planned 2026 run. The jazz group The Cookers abandoned their New Year's Eve performances. Folk singer Christy Lee walked away from her January engagement. Dance company Doug Verone and dancers canceled their April shows, forfeiting $40,000 in the process. Issa Rae, Shonda Rhimes, Ben Folds, Renee Fleming all have resigned from their leadership positions or canceled scheduled events. Lin-Manuel Miranda, asked about pulling Hamilton, said the decision was morally not complicated. The moral dimension is indeed straightforward, though the legal one proves interesting. In 1964, Congress passed and President Lyndon Johnson signed legislation establishing the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts as a living memorial to the assassinated president. The law specifically designated the institution's name and prohibited additional memorials or plaques in the building's public areas. When Trump's board voted in December to rename the institution the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, and workers appeared the following morning to affix Trump's name to the facade, they were not merely indulging a president's bottomless appetite for self-aggrandizement. They were, according to Representative Joyce Beatty's lawsuit, engaging in a flagrant violation of the rule of law that flies in the face of our constitutional order. Beatty, an Ohio Democrat who serves as an ex officio member of the board, has filed suit to reverse the renaming. Her complaint alleges that she was muted on the Zoom call during the board meeting when she attempted to object, a detail that transforms the White House's claim of a unanimous vote into something between farce and fraud. The lawsuit describes the proceedings as scenes more reminiscent of authoritarian regimes than the American Republic. This characterization may be charitable. The Kennedy family's response has been uniformly damning. Maria Shriver, the late president's niece, called the renaming beyond comprehension and downright weird. Tim Shriver deemed it an insult to a great president. Joe Kennedy III, the family's former congressman, noted that the Kennedy Center is a living memorial to a fallen president and named for President Kennedy by federal law. It can no sooner be renamed than can someone rename the Lincoln Memorial. Kerry Kennedy observed that Trump stands in opposition to everything her uncle represented: justice, peace, equality, dignity, diversity, and compassion for those who suffer. But the Kennedy Center saga is not fundamentally about legal technicalities or hurt feelings among American political dynasties. It is about the systematic hollowing of institutions by a man who understands their value only as vessels for his own reflected glory. Consider the mechanics of what has occurred. Trump seized control of a bipartisan board that had functioned without partisan interference since the center opened in 1971. He installed political operatives with no arts credentials. He banned programming he found objectionable on ideological grounds. He drove away artists, donors, and audiences. He claimed credit for saving an institution whose collapse he directly engineered. And then he affixed his name to the wreckage. This is not governance, it is strip mining. The Kennedy Center joins a growing list of institutions that Trump has simultaneously claimed to rescue and destroyed. The civil service, gutted by mass firings, USAID, dismantled entirely, the U.S. Institute of Peace, whose headquarters Trump also renamed after himself, even as his administration essentially eliminated the agency. The pattern is consistent: seize control, purge dissidents, extract whatever symbolic value remains, discard the husk. The irony that escapes Trump and his enablers is that the Kennedy Center's original purpose was to demonstrate that American democracy could produce culture worthy of the name. The Soviets had the Bolshoi, we would have something to match it. President Eisenhower conceived the idea, Kennedy championed it, Johnson built it as a memorial to a murdered leader. For more than half a century it stood as proof that partisan politics could be held at arm's length from artistic endeavor, that a Republican and a Democrat could sit in adjacent seats and share an experience that transcended their differences. Trump has converted this symbol of democratic possibility into a monument to autocratic ego. The very name now attached to the building announces that American institutions exist at the pleasure of the president and can be renamed, repurposed, or destroyed according to his whims. Grinnell speaks of programming for the masses, while the masses demonstrably stay away. The administration boasts of fundraising records while ticket sales collapse. The president claims to have saved a building that functioned perfectly well before he touched it. Billy Harper, the saxophonist who performed with the Cookers before they withdrew from their New Year's Eve engagement, put the matter succinctly. He would never even consider performing in a venue bearing a name that represents overt racism and deliberate destruction of African American music and culture. Jazz, he might have added, was born in this country from the collision of African and European traditions, nurtured in black communities that never received credit for their innovations, and eventually recognized as America's classical music. That such an art form should be unwelcome at a Trump-branded institution is not a bug but a feature. The question now is whether any of this can be reversed. Beatty's lawsuit may succeed. Congress designated the Kennedy Center's name by statute, and there is at least a colorable argument that no board can override an act of Congress. But even if Trump's name is eventually pried from the facade, the damage will endure. The artists who departed will not easily return. The audiences who stayed away will remember why. The institutional knowledge lost when Grinnell purged the staff cannot be recovered. The Kennedy Center that emerges from this era, whatever it is called, will be a diminished thing. Perhaps that is the point. Trump's war on cultural institutions, like his war on the press, the courts, the intelligence agencies, and the civil service, is not about improving them. It is about demonstrating that nothing in American life is beyond his reach, that no institution possesses inherent dignity or purpose that he cannot bend to his will. The Kennedy Center's original mission was to prove that democracy and high culture could coexist. Trump has proven, at least provisionally, the opposite. Maria Shriver concluded one of her social media posts with a vow: 3 years and 1 month from today, I'm going to grab a pickaxe and pull those letters off that building, but I'm going to need help holding the ladder. One hopes she will not need to. One fears she will find a long line of volunteers,